Welcome to the show. This is the Retirement Education Hour. Glad you tuned in today. I'm Megan Mozak, joined by financial instructors Kirk Cassidy and Dr. Paul Metler. Now, Kirk and Paul, they're financial instructors, as we mentioned, with the Retirement Education Foundation. And each and every week, the foundation is privileged to bring you this program, and it's focused on helping you get educated about retirement planning. So much has changed as we move into a modern retirement. We have to take a lot into account. So much is on your shoulders now as the retiree, and the foundation makes it its mission to help you move into this next stage of life with confidence. The show sets out to do that. And you can go even deeper. We'll be telling you about the master level like courses that the foundation offers on retirement planning. We want to see you there. So stay tuned on how you can reserve your spot before they fill up. And they do fill up quickly. You know, I want to get into this topic today. This is actually part 1 of 2, Kirk and Paul. And boy, am I excited to talk about it with you, because we do talk a lot about the financial aspect. But you two say that there's a psychological aspect to retirement. And Kirk, who better to be talking about this than Paul?
Well, exactly. We've got Dr. Paul Metler. For those new listeners that may not know this, Dr. Paul Metler is a psychologist and then fellowship trained in what used to be geriatric psychology. I think that's correct, Paul. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct. You're right.
Perfect. And so there's no better person to talk about this. And it's one of the Paul was a massive contributor to the founding of the charity, the Retirement Education Foundation, over a decade ago, because what we recognized in our private practices, being in business for over 20 years now, is we learned no matter how sound the plan was, no matter how hard we tried to provide people confidence and freedom and try to reduce their anxiety and fear, this phase of your life as you are approaching retirement and then enter into retirement is so psychological. It's so behavioral. You know, for a lot of people, a lot of really smart people, they don't recognize that this is so many of their decisions as they approach retirement and then through retirement is behavioral driven. It is psychologically driven. The logic often gets thrown out the window, and I know people aren't going to like me saying this, but particularly with men who sometimes aren't quite as insightful and have, really confident egos and have had a lot of financial success in their lives, they aren't prepared for and often don't even admit how much of their decision-making around what they spend, when they retire, what they do when they're in retirement, it's so much driven by fear and anxiety that they don't even realize it's happening to them. And really, Paul, it's a big part of the course. It's a big part of the show, radio shows, and the podcast, and all the educational content and the 8-hour classes. It's around trying to reduce anxiety and fear and empowering people with the tools to have the confidence that they really understand what's happening in their retirement and how to have the best possible outcomes in retirement and to find the right teams to help them.
Totally. Kirk, you would think I would sort of naturally have understood this years ago, but I must admit that, as we've evolved and as, I've done this for a while, over the years, I have become more and more, I guess, aware, convinced, not only as you retire, the importance of making sure the dollars and cents are correct, make sure the X and O's are correct, but more importantly, the power of retirement planning psychologically. That at the end of the day, if you really don't have a good retirement plan, it really will impact you more psychologically than it does anything else. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. You can have $10 million, and if you don't plan well, psychologically, your retirement will be different than if you do. And I love this show, and I think people will get a lot out of it.
Well, I think if they stick around, they're going to better understand how much the psychology behavior impacts what their retirement will look like and how they feel. So, as always, the purpose of this show is to encourage people to attend one of our 8-hour classes that are taught at major universities and colleges in your area, and we stream live. If you'd like to register for one of those classes, please go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
So, Kirk, I think most people intuitively understand and appreciate that retirement's, for some people, not easy, right? I think most people appreciate that to retire for some people brings challenges, as age brings challenges. As we all get older, there are challenges to growing older. And, I don't know that people, though, fully appreciate how the financial aspects of your future, your retirement plan, can really help address some of the psychological challenges that we all naturally go through. And this sort of intersection between psychology and finance and retirement, again, I've become more and more appreciative of the power of it, and how if you do it right, your future, your retirement will be so much smoother, so much better. And if you do it wrong, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you will struggle. And I just think that this intersection between the two fields, I think is very powerful. And I think the class, we spent quite a bit of time in the class talking about this intersection, right? This is a big part of the class.
It's a massive part of the class, Paul. And I think one of the things, Paul, to think about in it, this is a great example of where, so from a psychological perspective, and as a psychologist, you conceptually understood, theoretically understood the impacts of finances and retirement and anxiety of as your life is ending in the second half of your life and how much different it is. And we're going to get into some of those things and some of your formal training around that. But then when you do what you learned, and we'll talk about this in the next segment, maybe some more, but what you learned once you got into the financial service industry and you started helping people who are approaching literally make the financial decisions, you recognized, I think you connect. I mean, it was and I'd like you to mention this as we come back next segment, maybe is how the light bulb came on for you is like, okay, I practically understood, but now that I'm helping people, like now that's how we shaped a lot of the content in these classes. Is when that light bulb moment went off for you, Paul, is when I think we really started to make some strides in changing people's lives in the over 10,000 people we have now taught at our 8-hour courses that are taught in 2 evenings or 1 full Saturday at most colleges and universities in your area. And then we allow people to stream from all over the country listening to our podcast. They are able to stream into our classes live as we're teaching them from the university so they can participate in the classes. So if you'd like to register, we ask for a $29 donation to charity. If you'd like to attend, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now, back to the show.
Speaking with Kirk and Paul today about the psychological impact of retirement. What does retirement and psychology have to do with one another? Well, of course, Dr. Paul Mettler's with us. And Paul, you talked about a light bulb moment where your worlds collided, didn't they, between your practice of psychology and then the financial piece. Walk us through what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, I've always sort of understood and appreciated some of the challenges around retirement and aging and some of the, the developmental aspects of this period of your life. So I've always sort of understood it, but I don't know that I ever fully appreciated how retirement planning, the financial part, and psychology intersect. And the sort of the light bulb Kirk references that really went off was after meeting people who it seemed had enough money. They financially appeared to have enough money, but did not have a retirement plan, a true retirement plan, and how they were living their life in retirement, and they weren't enjoying it. And they were struggling with all the things that, as a psychologist, I understood they would struggle with. Compared to then meeting people who didn't have nearly as much money, but had a real retirement plan, a true retirement plan, and they were not struggling with those things that, as a psychologist, I understood. Whether it was feeling a sense of control or meaning in their life or leaving a legacy or, managing the unknown. These are things that people, as we age, life and death, that people struggle with as they retire. People who didn't have a lot of money but were actually feeling good, not anxious, and enjoying their life because they had a real plan. And at that moment, I realized it didn't really matter how much money you had. We've met people who have a lot of money, but still struggled psychologically because they never had a plan. And that's when the light bulb hit, Kirk. And I know you've met people like this, and this is something you've preached a lot. You talk a lot in the class about. But that for me was when I realized this intersection, that if we can really help people create a truly meaningful retirement plan financially, it really will help them psychologically with some of the things that we all naturally have to go through when we retire and we get older.
It's amazing to listen to you, Paul, because of your background. And for those who don't know, Paul, even though Paul has a different last name, Paul is my brother, by the way. Same mother, different father, raised in the same house. I tease him because he's my older brother. He raised me, if we're being honest. So listening to you talk about this, it's funny because I came from a different background. Obviously, I didn't go to school to be a psychologist, right? And I didn't specialize in geriatric psychology either. So that behavioral piece, until Paul was able to connect those dots to me, then I better understood my decades of years in the financial service business, right? Before the charity, still even now, but even before the charity, I was in the we operate like a family office as a private practice, dealing with higher net worth families, right? That $1 to $20 million families who we've dealt with for decades. And I always struggled to understand why the financial service industry wouldn't lead into more comprehensive planning, giving clients a greater sense of control, greater clarity, and greater education. I didn't understand until Paul connected the dots for me, is when I realized, oh my gosh, the financial service industry is very aware of this fear. They have researched behavioral financing for years for young people and old people. So they understand exactly what they're doing when they lack the education, when they lack the truly comprehensive planning, not cookie cutter, money, not the junk. Like, that is done intentionally because they know the more fear and anxiety the person has, the less money you will spend. And the less money the clients spend, the less money consumers spend in retirement, the more the financial service industry makes. They make more money when you spend less of your money. They have zero incentive to give you that sense of control, that sense of freedom, so you'll spend more. They have no incentive. What's the incentive to get you to retire early? So you'll spend more of your money quicker, so they make less. What is that incentive? And there isn't none. And I'm embarrassed to say it took me a long time before Paul was able to explain and connect those dots for me of, this is an opinion, that manipulating a little bit so that every time we have an election you don't like, or if someone offers you a buyout, the advisor says, you'll be fine. Oh, you'll be fine. Here's a printout of a probability of success. They know that isn't going to make you feel good. They know that you will shut down and panic and not spend. They also know the less planning they do and the more fear you have, the more control they have, and the less work they really have to do. They can just make it very generic. You'll self-monitor. You'll panic when there's major market events, spending less. They really don't have to do advanced planning because your fear will overcome your desire to spend. And so that's really what these 8-hour classes are about, is to provide you the knowledge, the education, to understand exactly what's going to give you the freedom in retirement to retire, because many of you who aren't retiring probably have what you need to give you the retirement you want. And B, once you retire, not allow these short-term events to drive your spending decisions to spend less. That's silliness. You don't need to. The problem is you're not finding the right teams and you don't have the right knowledge to find those teams. And that's what the 8-hour class does. I hope that all of you take advantage of the opportunity to go to the charity's 8-hour classes that are taught at most major universities and colleges in your area. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Listening from outside Michigan or Missouri? We stream courses live from the university so you can attend anywhere in the country. Go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org to sign up. And now back to the show.
Kirk and Paul, let's continue talking. This is part one about the psychology of retirement. What are those biggest psychological impacts that are facing retirees?
Yeah, this is. I don't want to get too deep into psychology. The purpose of this show isn't about psychology, but the intersection between psychology and retirement planning. You have to at least appreciate and understand what are the key challenges that people face in retirement. And everything I'm going to say, I think most people know, but I think it's important to highlight. Right, when you think about what are the drivers for older adults as they are leaning towards retirement, there are really two developmental drivers. One is maintaining control, right? As we age, maintaining control is really important. And that's control over your health, just control over your own body and your decision making. And the second is searching for legacy and meaning. So when you think about it, right, as we're in their 30s and 40s, our focus is forward looking. It's all about creating goals, anticipating and completing goals, and achieving accomplishments. As we age, it's more about, and as we face retirement, it's more looking backward, right? How do we make sense of the things that we've done, our experiences, and how do we look back in a way that we don't regret what we've done? And part of that is about legacy. So the key to really building a good retirement, right? The key to a successful retirement is creating a life where as you age, you feel like you can maintain control and independence and feel like you have a say in the decisions of your life, and also look back in your life with feeling pride and good and positive rather than looking back and regretting the things you've done. And the more successful you are at maintaining control and reflecting backwards in a positive way, the better that retirement and growing older will be for you. The happier you'll be, the less anxious, the more you will actually enjoy your life. And this, Kirk, is obviously where, for me, I never fully appreciated the power of a retirement plan and a real retirement plan. Because if you create a real retirement plan that really allows a person to maintain control and look back in a way that they feel positive, and that's through legacy, and that's through sense of meaning. If you do that, people will spend their money and enjoy their life and really appreciate this phase of their life. And that's not dependent on how much money you have. It doesn't matter how much you have. If you're able to do that, your retirement will be much more successful. And if you don't do it, you will live with a lot more regret, and you will struggle with anxiety and fear, and you will not enjoy and you will not spend. And this is what we see in the people we meet in the class all the time.
Paul, it's difficult when we get into the class because what you shared there was so logical, right? But as soon as we start talking about money, I think people struggle to appreciate how truly broken we are with our money. We are. We're not fully able because of emotions, greed or fear. Greed or fear usually drives bad decisions around our money, right? So to your point, Paul, the plan, it's one thing to have a comprehensive plan, which anyone, if you think you have a comprehensive retirement plan, you don't. I'm very confident most of our listeners don't, especially those, 700,000 plus people to 10, 20 million. You do not have a comprehensive retirement plan. I'll prove it to you. I challenge all of you to go to the charity's website and just watch. We have a webinar. It's a 30, 40-minute webinar on what a sample plan looks like. Just look at that plan and tell me if you have any of the variables and different levers and components to that plan, okay? And so it's one thing to have the plan, but Paul, it's a second thing to understand what a plan should look like, what a retirement plan should incorporate, because they're not getting it from any of the financial service industries. There's not a book, a white paper. No one's talking about this. There's no incentive to give you this control, this power, this freedom in retirement, because the more control, power, and freedom you have in retirement, the more you'll spend. And the more you spend, the less they make, the financial service industry makes. There is no incentive for that. So that is the whole purpose of the class, is to teach you, first of all, to help you get more in tune with your relationship with money. And maybe we'll talk about that next segment. Your relationship with money is going to change. It needs to change, but it can change poorly, right? So we're going to talk about that next. But it's to show you what a real comprehensive retirement plan should have in it, and why. Why these things are so important. What really drives performance, not what you invest in. It's actually where you take your income from during different market conditions. You've never heard that before this show. I can guarantee you that. But that's what's going to drive performance. So the class is going to teach you what to look for in a retirement plan, and then how to go find the teams that are out there. And there are some out there, people that do it. There are some, not a lot, but there's some. But because everyone talks about doing it, that's the problem. And the class empowers you to know, is someone conning you or BSing you or giving you real comprehensive retirement planning so that you can make good decisions and have the freedom you deserve and you've earned. So attend one of these 8-hour classes. I'm telling you, it'll change your retirement. I don't know what else to tell you. And all we ask you to do is make a $29 donation to charity to attend. They're 8 hours taught over 2 evenings or 1 full Saturday. We're teaching them in major universities and colleges in your area, and you can stream them if you don't live in those areas, so you can live and be a part of the class live, streaming it. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
Classes are forming now. Go to retirementplanningedu.org to register. Again, that's retirementplanningedu.org. Use the promo code PODCAST to receive 50% off your tuition. And now, back to the show.
All right, Kirk, I heard you say our relationship with money, it changes. And it should change as we get closer to retirement. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, there's a couple of things. So there's 2 components of this, and it's a major theme of the class, right? Your relationship with money. So I can tell you 2 things. 1, as you get older, whether you want to admit this or not, this is the fact. Cognitively, things begin to decline. For some of us, it goes faster. For some of us, it goes slower. But it's going to decline. And we don't know if it's going to go faster or slower. We have no idea. So when knowing that, one of the first things that begins to decline in us, research tells us, is mathematics. So our relationship with money becomes more fearful and anxiety driven. And as it becomes more fearful and anxiety driven, we spend less. So we'd like to say often is that older people, a stereotype for some older people is they are cheap. And it's not that they're cheap. It's typically that they have fear. They have fear. They don't fully understand. They're fearful of outliving your money. And remember, I'm sorry to say, the industry has promoted fear to you guys for decades, right? Protect your principal by all costs, by all means, so you don't outlive your money. Does someone with $2, $3, $4, $5 million need to protect their principal? Do you really need to protect? Can you have a controlled spend down as long as you never outlive your money, and as long as you're risk mitigating against long-term care, early deaths, as long as you have a comprehensive plan that address all the different risks that are associated with aging and retiring and dying and healthcare? Can't we spend more and not leave the same amount of wealth that we retired with? Do we really need to? So this relationship with money becomes more fearful. The other component, Paul, where I really want to lean into a little bit here, is the relationship with money that we've had when we were younger and we were accumulating wealth, right? This relationship to accumulate wealth to raise our family, to grow our wealth so that we can potentially put our children through school if we have children, to accumulate our wealth so that we can eventually retire. It's really hard to switch that behavior, that habit of save, cut corners, save, don't do it ourselves, don't spend money on this, don't spend money on that, change our lifestyle based upon life events, to this, I'm retiring now. And now I'm not earning anymore. And I don't need to make it grow anymore. That's, I mean, some of you may choose to, but that's not a priority because we have what we need to give us the retirement we want. So now it's about the relationship with money, to spend our money, to distribute it, to allow us to live and enjoy the money we've earned. Now that sounds easy, but I'm going to tell you, most everyone struggles, fails at this, and there's no education to teach you this. And I'll give you the easiest example, Paul. I hear people all the time saying, my employer has a free legal service or a discounted legal service. I meet people with $1 million, $3 million, $5 million, $10 million. We meet them in the class all the time that has this discounted legal service that gave them their trust. And I asked them, so if you went to someone that did real legal documentation, real estate planning, trust work, Well, what would it cost? And the answer is usually to do it effectively for someone under $5 million, you're going to spend, $3,000 to $6,000. So let's call it $5,000. My question to and I'm going to question all you guys listening. Tell me how much less income you will spend per year in retirement if you spent $5,000 today. Will it change? You're retired right now, and now you're doing your legal documents, and you spend $5,000. Will that impact your spending for the rest of your life at all? And the answer is no. It doesn't impact it even a little bit, because none of you are going to spend down your principal. If you have $1 million today, I will guarantee you none of you will spend your money down below $500,000. You'll be too afraid. So that see that connection that I can spend on these things as long as I don't do it all the time, and it doesn't impact my lifestyle in retirement. That relationship with money, I know people are struggling to connect these dots, but we spend a lot of time showing you examples of this and where you can retire. You don't need to wait until 65 to get Medicare. You can pay for private insurance, some of you. Some of you have the resources. It won't impact your lives. You can afford it. It's okay. Paul, I'm sorry I hogged that segment.
No, I mean, I'm listening to you, and all I'm thinking about is this is why I love what we do. Because for me, knowing that through this class, we can help people have a different relationship with money and be able to switch and start really enjoying their retirement and feeling like they have control and feeling like they have meaning in their life and look back and not have regret, and that we're part of that. We're part of helping people transition and have a different relationship with money so that they can actually have the retirement want. That is so rewarding. It puts a smile. It really does. It's what I love, what we do. And so I think this is where the class, folks, this is where the class will help you. It won't just help you. It will help you enjoy your retirement in a way that you really can appreciate. So it's important you come to this class.
In next segment, Paul, I really want to talk about, without this education and that plan, the fear, what it causes. It causes you to buy products and investments you shouldn't have. Like these decisions about what you own and when to own it should be driven by your plans, not your emotions. If I'm doing something in the stock market, it's not your feelings or your emotions, it's your plan. And that's why this 8-hour class, just do us a favor, do yourself a favor. Attend one of the charity's 8-hour classes taught in major universities and colleges. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. To find our latest white papers and webinars, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. And remember to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
All right, back to part one of the Psychology of Money with Kirk Cassidy and Dr. Paul Mettler. And Kirk, we were talking about the relationship that we have with money. And if that relationship doesn't get in a good spot, what are some of the potential impacts or outcomes that we could see in retirement?
Well, this is the psychology of retirement. And the psychology of retirement is what, I do this all the time. And I tell you, the pressure we get back from the financial service industry for the comments we make it's a lot. The charity gets a lot of pushback from people in our business. They don't like some of the messages we're sharing. Some embrace them and use the messages, but don't actually execute and do the real planning. They just pretend to be doing it and saying the right things. Again, that's what the purpose of the class is, so no one can fool you into that. But the reality is, the more fear and anxiety you have, the easier it is for them to sell you things, to have this idea that someone can really market time or stock pick around market events. This is all voodoo, guys. This isn't reality. Right? This is the con. That inflation is the number one fear to a retiree. That is craziness. That is not reality, because your spending patterns will significantly decrease as you age. We know, they know it. The government has published these data points statistically. We've taught over 10,000 people. We have private practices where we take care of thousands of people. Look, they sell fear to get you to buy products, to buy investments, to think they have some secret sauce. None of them will spend the time, which is crazy to me, dedicate the time to really build a comprehensive plan, right? So they're going to sell you an annuity to take care of that fear of outliving the money, or you're worried about who's being elected or market events. They're going to invest you in a 60-40 portfolio, and that's your solution. Just take out 4. This is craziness, right? Come to the class so that you have the education. And once you have the education and understand how to find the right people to help you, and then you find the right people to help you with the knowledge that, oh, this plan has all the tools to mitigate all the different risks that could exist over the next 30 years of retirement, including several major market events, 3 to 6 major market events, including, it doesn't matter who's being elected, including one of you passing away early, or getting sick early. All of the different variables, and I just named just a few, right? If you have the knowledge and the confidence that you have the right team, if you have that knowledge and that confidence, then the fear goes away. You'll actually retire on time. See, that's another one, right? They don't want you to retire, so they don't give you the confidence to retire, because the longer you work, the more they make. So that's the purpose of this class. Every decision about your retirement should be driven based upon your plan. And your plan's going to tell you, if you have the right type of team and the right type of plan, do I have what I need to give me what I want in retirement? And then it'll tell you, when are you going to spend each dollar of the dollars you have saved? And if we have a plan that drives when you're going to spend those dollars, now we know how to invest those particular dollars. And then once you invest those, because again, see, the plan is driving what you invest in, when you're taking the money from it. The plan's going to dictate, if we have a major market event, where you're taking your income from, which accounts. It has pivot accounts. You guys most of you don't even understand any of this. And that's what the class is there for. It's to help you, to give you that freedom to spend and enjoy retirement. Paul, sorry.
No, I mean, I
think we're going to talk about it in the last segment too, right?
Yeah, and the problem is the impact if you don't have that, right? And I mean, I think of, Kirk, how many people we've met that could have easily retired years earlier and didn't. And because you can't transition to this period where they're not just focusing on accumulating and they're spending money. And everyone who's listening knows somebody who worked too long, passed away, and didn't enjoy the retirement, right? That's not what you want, listeners. That's not what you want, right? And it's all centered around the psychology of retirement. And if you have that plan, you won't work beyond where you need to work, and you will spend and travel and do the things that you can do and want to do without fear and regret. And who does not want that, right? We all want that. And that the key of that is through the plan.
So before we get emails and comments about, you guys are assuming that everyone wants to retire. Some of us want to work, and more power to you. If you truly want to continue working and love working, then you should, right? But what we want to make sure, what we hope to make sure in part of the class is to identify, is your desire to continue to work, is it psychological? Is it because that's your identity? And you don't know how to figure out having a different identity besides your career? It feeds your ego. It makes you feel better about yourselves. These are fine, but at some point they're going to tell you can't. At some point you're going to be confronted with that. Or is it your fear that you say you want to work because you love working, but really you're afraid of outliving your money? What is it? Just as long as you are honest with yourselves and have the honest answer and understand, which isn't easy. That's part of the 8 hours of class that we're teaching you. Then, most people want to retire. They want to be done, right? And it's remarkable. Most of the people coming, there's a correlation between people coming to our class and most of them having what they need to give them what they want in retirement. There is a correlation there. I don't know why, but there is. So attend one of our 8-hour classes. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
Want to get back now to the topic at hand and ask you, Kirk and Paul, how can a plan start to mitigate some of the psychological impacts we've been talking about today?
Well, I think we really want to talk about the course. And what we teach in the course is what a comprehensive plan looks like. And then as a result, it gives you the freedom, the confidence to be able to manage some of those challenges as you're aging, making difficult decisions in a difficult time in your life for a lot of reasons, and which we'll say some of those we'll save for part 2, some of the things we're being confronted with at this point in our lives. I don't want to forget to mention, because I think it's interesting given the topic of today's show, which is the psychology of retirement. This is part 1. Our relationship we've had in the partnership we have with the Alzheimer's Association. So over the last about 6 months, we've dedicated to raise money for Alzheimer's, the charity has, and we have now, through the charity, raised somewhere between 70 and 80,000. Our goal is to hit 80,000 by the end of the year. So talk about psychology and aging and retirement, Alzheimer's. Maybe we'll tackle that in long-term care in part 2. But it's something that should be on all of our minds, and we're trying to make an impact there as well. So with that said, here's the solution. The antidote to freedom, confidence, impact in retirement. And it's all about a plan. It's education, understanding what a comprehensive retirement plan looks like and what it will do for you. And it's all around education, right? So a comprehensive retirement plan is going to tell you definitively, do you have what you need to give you what you want in retirement? That's first. Second, it's going to tell you that, yes, we're going to have major market events. You're going to throughout your 20, 30-year retirement. It's going to happen. And there's going to be elections you don't like too. These things are going to happen, and we're going to have market events that are scary. Does the plan have a pivot account or pivot accounts that we can pivot to during those periods of volatility and uncertainty to mitigate what we call a sequence of returns risk? To, again, this is risk mitigation, is where do I take my income from? See, it's not where you invest your money. It's where do I take my money from? What accounts do I take them from when we have the major market events, and make sure I have those pivot accounts sprinkled throughout my retirement plan. So there's got to be pivot accounts. We got to manage sequence of returns risk. That's going to manage performance. That's going to drive performance, where I take my income from during the different market events. Then a plan is going to say if one of the spouses passes away at 70, at 75, at 80, what happens to the surviving spouse? Do they have enough income? Do they have enough money to take care of themselves if there's a long-term care event? What if the other one dies at 70, 75, 80? So a plan is going to summarize and spreadsheet all these risk mitigations, all these potential risks, to be able to mitigate them in the event that any of those things happen throughout your retirement. So if you understand the risks, you understand how the plan will eliminate and mitigate those risks, how you can make sure you never outlive your income, to make sure you never have a long-term care event that devastates all of your money so you run out of money. If you have those things and understand those things, that's why it's an 8-hour almost master levels class. If you have those things, then you have freedom. Then you have confidence. A, you'll retire sooner. B, you'll spend more money in retirement. And C, the class spends a lot of money on showing you how to mitigate some of those tax risks. How do I reduce my tax bill over my lifetime by $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, sometimes millions of dollars, depending on your own individual situation. So that education gives you all that freedom and all that anxiety around your taxes, around spending, outliving your money, inflation, all those things. It's mapped out. Paul, jump in.
So, I think just to bring this full circle, right? This is about the psychology of retirement. Everything you just said that comes with a really true retirement plan, all of that really tackles going back to those 2 developmental drivers in older adults, right? If you're able to successfully do what you just said, you're going to feel like you have more control, and you're going to feel like you have more meaning in your life, right? If you are able to, if you know that you can have enough money, and you know that you're not going to be a burden to your children, and you know your surviving spouse will be fine no matter what, and you know if you end up in a nursing home, that's not going to be a problem. You know if the market crashes, if you have all of this mapped out, if you've mitigated those risks, then you won't feel as anxious and worried, and you'll feel like you have more control over your life, and you'll be able to look forward and feel positive. And that's where this intersection occurs, and there's no better place to learn about this than in a classroom, and that's what our course does.
And of course, Dr. Paul Mettler nailed what I took 4 minutes to say in like 60 seconds. That was a great job. So please, everyone, register to attend one of our 8-hour classes. They're like master level courses taught at major universities and colleges in your area, and we stream them live. So wherever you are in the country, even if we don't have a class close to you, you can attend. It will change your retirement. And all we ask is for a $29 donation to charity to attend this course. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org.
Retirement Education Foundation is a fiscally sponsored program of United Charitable, a registered 501c3 public charity. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any insurance discussed in this show is backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Retirement Education Foundation is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Retirement Education Foundation. This radio show is paid for by the Retirement Education Foundation.